Hey guys, George Diamondyard Sportscards coming at you with another video. Now it's been a little while since I did a video, since before the National. So a lot of things been going on. The first thing is I wanted to, everybody's done a big recap video of the National. This is like the most targeted recap video that I can think of. But man, what a great time. So if you have a chance to go to the National, you got to go. The guys in the house, all the Misfits crew, and I don't want to, the whole group of guys that was there were awesome. And it was great seeing everybody there. I'm not going to go through a big National recap. I'm going to talk about two cards that I picked up at the National. I didn't buy a lot. I just kind of wandered around and really soaked it up with all the friends. The YouTubers happy hour at the VFW was great. And so it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience. You know who you are. Anyway, also wanted to give a shout out to the Misfits channel. I think we're going on Wednesdays. I saw last week I was intending to be on it, but then missed out. So hopefully this week. So I wanted to talk about a few things. And first thing was James, our friend Elite Hunters, is having a contest about why we love vintage. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, and then talk about some shows. I've just been so busy. I've been doing a bunch of shows. We did Burbank show in Anaheim. I did Long Beach after that, and then did Front Row show in Phoenix. The Front Row show, boy, Dan the promoter really brings them in for sure. So those Front Row shows are pretty good. I mean, there's a wide mix of things, but I'd recommend going to one of those shows in Pasadena or Anaheim, Vegas, and of course Seattle. But anyway, so why I love vintage. Well, we talked, Saul and James and I were in the VFW on the side there having a drink during the National YouTubers happy hour. And James and I and Saul were talking about it, and James asked me this question. And my explanation is the same, I think, at that time as it's been. Vintage is something that tracks the history of America. And especially with baseball cards really track the ascension of America as a world power, as a leader, as a culture that was growing, and baseball was kind of indicative of that. You guys know my love of Jackie Robinson, and I'm going to show you a really cool piece later on that I picked up at the Front Row show recently. It's a program autographed by Jackie. But I mentioned Jackie Robinson, but we have so many things that were done in baseball that kind of really affected society as baseball grew, America grew, and, through the Industrial Revolution, then obviously the Depression and the Babe, kind of carrying at least sports in a lot of ways. And then we had we had obviously Pearl Harbor, World War II, DiMaggio and Williams having that wonderful 1941 season before the shadow of the war and what would happen on December 7th. And so, then of course, we have the 40s and then after the post-war era, and then the integration and with Jackie Robinson and Larry Doby and so many others that were given a chance to play. And then that kind of tracked the civil rights kind of movement and how things grew and America was changing and changing for the better, in my opinion. And then obviously, and so then we have the 50s, and Ken Burns baseball tracks this the same way. And maybe I'm really influenced by that. I probably am. But my grandfather was a big history, had a PhD in history, and I spent a lot of time with him. And he was the big reason why I collect cards. So then we have the 50s and the rise of America's power as a global leader coming out of the war. And baseball tracks that too, with the great rivalries between the Dodgers and the Yankees, which now we have the first World Series, obviously, between the two teams since 1981. For me, it's really cool because that's when I really started collecting with Fernando Mania and all that. It was Fernando Mania on one side of the country, and it was Reggie on the other. So it's going to be a great World Series. Really, it's about time we had a number one seed versus a number one seed in a 7-game series, because baseball is meant to be a 7-game series. It's not meant to be a 3-game series. So, and then it tracks, we have the 60s and the change of things, and you see things happening in society and the counterculture movement and people growing their hair long. And next thing you know, we have the Oakland A's and their mustaches, and they're growing their hair long, and they become this great dynasty. And then so baseball, and this is vintage cards, but you know, vintage cards kind of take us back in time, and it's a little piece of history that we can hold in our hand. It's not like a comic book in the sense of if it's slabbed, you can only see the cover front and back. I mean, really, when you're buying comics, you're just buying the cover and the back, frankly. With a baseball card, you get the full story, you know. And I'm going to turn this around and talk a little bit more and show you some cool cards from the National and a Jackie Robinson autograph program. So here we go, guys. So, you know, as I was saying with the idea of cards, and I know you guys have seen this typical card, this card on my show ad nauseum, but I mean, you know, you have the beautiful art on the front, and you know, also the reason I love vintage cards is the art. The photographs, the designs, and then as you go backward, you have these drawings or renditions of photos, and then you go back even further, and they're more rudimentary drawings, and they're all beautiful and very colorful. And the print, you know, it's not like they had laser printers or anything like that. So these things had to be, you know, overlaid, and we have print defects and triple and double prints and quadruple prints because of print defects, and it was tough to print cards. But, you know, you get the full story here about what goes on front and back with these cards. And it's just a great way to disseminate information. And, you know, and when I was growing up in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, you know, I got a lot of my information off these cards. And I would just sit and soak them up and try to memorize whatever I could memorize, and memorize the numbers of the cards and the numbers of the players and, you know, all of that. And I'm sure a lot of you guys have similar experiences. But anyway, James, thank you for putting this together. Hopefully we can convince Saul that vintage is the way. But I do collect modern cards too. I mean, I picked up a Patrick Mahomes RPA in Anaheim. You know, Patrick Mahomes, 3 Super Bowls. I mean, he's not going anywhere. But vintage is where I have my heart because of the history, because how it tracks America, the growth of America. Anyway, guys, so that's my answer to that, James. Hope that was adequate. So at the National, I made a couple trades, and you know, I saw some guys there who were getting Pete Rose rookies, and this one had really good registration, and I traded a Koufax rookie for this one. I didn't have a Rose rookie at the time, and so I picked up this nice 4.5. The centering isn't the greatest, but it is a beautiful card, and the registration is fantastic. So many times there are issues of 63s, print dots, whatever. But anyway, you know, I want to pay tribute to Pete Rose. He's always been around since I've been collecting, and many of you have been collecting, and he's just been a staple. And frankly, when I was a kid pulling out the Hall of Famers, he was always the guy I pulled out. And he is a Hall of Famer to me and always has been. Frankly, one of my first PCs was Pete Rose. And, you know, I still have my 72 Rose from when I was a boy, my 64 Rose. I sold John Mangini a Venezuelan 64 Rose at the National, and I was giving him crap that I kind of regretted it. But that Venny Rose is at a good home with Mangini, of course. So, but anyway, so that's a Rose I picked up. The only card I really bought was from Prestige Auction, or Prestige Collectibles. Robert and the guys over there cut me a deal on this beautiful Hank Aaron. And, you know, Hank Aaron, another one of my my personal collections, and maybe my number 1 or my number 2 after Jackie. But this was a really, really cool Hank Aaron Sadaharu Oh. And this is pretty high grade for this card. Apparently I was talking to the guys and they were telling me that there's only 2 cards with O and Aaron on them. This one was from a 1974 Home Run Derby. You can see it's very 70s in nature, mimicking the 58 from the 57 World Series, Aaron and Mantle, and they're doing kind of the same pose here. Hank, I guess, had flown all night, and they were doing I think at the Yomiuri Giants Stadium, they were doing a home run derby, O versus Aaron. And Hank flew all night, and they threw a uniform on him, and they did the home run derby, and the home run king, Henry Aaron, won that home run derby in a dramatic 10-9 defeat of the global home run leader, Sadaharu Oh. But this was a card I picked up at the National. I couldn't pass it up, and Prestige gave me such a good deal on it. They really worked with me because they understood how much I really, really admired Hank Aaron. So anyway, that was that one. This is just a Clemente rookie I picked up. I just want to talk to you about, you know, Beckett versus SGC versus PSA. This thing's killer, and you know, it was in a Beckett slab, and I had to get it. Now, is it going to be a PSA 3.5? Maybe not. Maybe a 3. maybe a 2.5, but the color on this thing was so bold. So another reason I love vintage, just again, the art, the color, the history. Frankly, all you have to do is smell the cards, and then you just kind of go back in time. And it's a wonderful, wonderful feeling, and it just takes you back in time. Last thing I want to show you guys is a really cool piece that I picked up at the Front Row show. A great gentleman came up. He sold me quite a bit of stuff, and this is a personal story of his. I'm not going to say his name, but basically, I already was into buying a lot of stuff from him, and you guys from the Midwest or Cubs fans may recognize the back of this program. This is a 1965 Cubs program, and this gentleman pulled this out. The last thing he had, he says, "Well, I wonder, are you interested in this?" And I said, "I couldn't be more interested in this." So let me just move some cards out of the way so I can give you a better look at this item. So this is a program, and I had a couple of these from collection of Wrigley Field programs. And so when I looked at it, Cubs Wrigley Field program, and then I saw that it had an autograph on it, and I saw it had this autograph on it. And, you know, I thought to myself, okay, now we're going to have the conversation. And by the way, this is Ron Santo as well. So it's got Santo and Jackie on it. It's from 1965, and I'll go over the story in a minute. But this Jackie program, I thought to myself, oh, that signature's real. Now I'm going to have a conversation with him about, you know, me taking the risk and getting it authenticated because I'm going to have to get it authenticated. Well, the gentleman turns it over, and he's got a letter of authenticity from Spence with a whole description of this, a description of this July 3rd program from Wrigley Field, Cubs versus San Francisco Giants at Wrigley Field. And it says the Jackie signature is near mint and the Santos signature is mint. Anyway, so it was great to have this already. But, you know, you may be wondering, well, why was Jackie there? So I looked this up, and this scorecard it's actually scored on the inside by the gentleman. This is scored on the inside, and this is what I'll tell you. This gentleman told me that he went to his first Cubs game when he was 5 years old, and he was there, and with his dad, and they were there before the game. And before the game, I guess Jackie Robinson, this guy named Jackie Robinson, whose dad talked about, was on the field doing interviews in a suit and doing interviews for the game of the week, I guess. And so he used to do that, I guess, and he explained to me that Wrigley Field, you kind of have to go from the field through the stands to get to the press box. And what happened was his dad said, hey, we got to have this gentleman sign this. And the gentleman who sold me this, again, was 5 years old at the time. And he didn't know who Jackie Robinson was. And he and his dad flagged down this man in a suit and had him sign this program. And he told me at the time that at 5 years old, he just didn't know who this man was, or his father was indicating to him how important he was. And so then he got the signature. And then they got Santo after the game. So this was just such a neat piece, and we worked out a deal on it, and I'm just really happy to have it. And I'll be real frank with you, I haven't been adding a lot of stuff to my personal collection as I've been dealing a lot. But this is something that is going to go in the personal collection. And I thank the guy who sold it to me. It was a wonderful story about how he acquired this. And obviously he told me, later on in his life, as he learned more about baseball, he realized how significant this was. Another thing was that he also told me that he wanted this to go to somebody who appreciated it. And I think you have to think to yourself when you're buying stuff from people, he knew that I was a Jackie guy. I explained to him, my admiration for Jackie and how he's my number one personal collection target. And so he said, I absolutely want it to go to somebody who will enjoy it. And frankly, I'll just keep it. And, my sons obviously know who he is. And so if they inherit it or whatever someday, but it's not going to be leaving my possession, I can tell you that. So guys, thank you so much for watching. I'm sorry it's been so long since I had a video out. James, thank you for your contest, and everybody who was at the house on Mattingly Drive, especially Eric Fourleaf. What a great host and just a generous, generous guy with a wonderful heart. And Scott, Reindeer Studios, driving us around, chauffeuring us around, him and his family, and I really appreciate that, and all the guys did. So guys, thank you so much. I hope to see you in Chicago, and keep collecting.